government schemes and private public sectors partnerships?
I think anywhere in the world you'll find that governments are not particularly good at innovation. Right? I don't think there's a single instance in the world where governments are driving the thought process. In fact, one could argue they're not even particularly good at execution. That's a different problem. But in the space of innovation, I think the broader responsibility of government is to keep an ecosystem that allows institutions like yours or others to thrive. So keep the law and peace and calm, and keep a decent infrastructure, keep a kind of equitable, harmonious society, and then kind of try to be on the edges where we can add value. So we have done a few things, some of them more when I was finance minister. We did the startup TN when I was finance minister. I announced when I was finance minister emerging sector seed fund under the Tamil Nadu Infrastructure Fund Management Corporation, which is a private equity platform, 500 crores there. And then we started targeting startups in, like SC/ST entrepreneurs who are not able to get traction. We found people who had like niche issues. I would say one of the better things that we did, again, when I was finance minister, was I saw a lot of startups that the government could actually use the products or the services, like in drone technology and surveys for municipal kind of administration in many ways, from water to property tax to many things, or like IoT for IoT kitchens, cloud kitchens for like mass cooking, like for our school breakfast program, free breakfast. So what we did back then, we announced two changes. We said that we will have Sell to Government Day. That is, every one of the 30-odd departments of the government of Tamil Nadu would invite startups based in Tamil Nadu to say, pitch to us what services or products that you have that we can buy and we can use for the people and improve the functioning of government. And to make it easier, once they found a fit, we changed the Tender Transparency Act, which is again written by the Finance Department, and said, if you can show that you're a startup, relatively newly started, no established business, and it's a relatively new technology, then up to 50 lakhs of the first contract, you don't have to go through a tender process. You can just give a custom award. So you make that path a bit easier. And what I would have liked, which I initiated but was not fully executed, is that every single time the government takes one of these contracts, that the government should also actually buy equity, invest in the company, because then it's a win-win-win. One, we are validating that the technology works. That's why we are taking the contract. Two, we are benefiting from it because the people get the benefit. The government's functioning is better with it than without it. And three, with the stamp of approval that the government of Tamil Nadu itself is a customer, surely this company's prospects look a lot brighter. And therefore, we can invest in the company and let it grow. And that gives them financing beyond the order. The order is like, what can I say, a stamp of approval. The financing is buying the equity. So that was the vision we had. Some of it we've done. Some of it, I think, after roles changed. A lot of jobs, the person defines the job, right? If person A does the job, then person B comes, the job description changes based on the person. So I would say that, I'm not sure exactly how well that is going. But these are the things on the margin we can do. We have announced many funds. We have announced competitions. We do hackathons. But these are point in time relative to the scale of the state. We need 5, 10, 15 institutions like yours and hundreds at a much smaller level to actually be the drivers of like weighted average growth. And for that, our job is to just keep the ecosystem conducive, supported, equitable, infrastructure decent, things like that.
So you've mentioned about the human factors engineering and your background in human factors engineering. So how does this help you in developing and implementing citizen-based IT services, digital services for TN, sir? That's my question.
But it's very easy to make announcements, right? It's very easy to say, it shall be so, this shall happen, there shall be a plastic ban. or the court gives an order. The court gives an order, 6,000 e-passes per day will be allowed into the Nilgiris in Monday to Friday, and 8,000 Saturday, Sunday. Now, how will you implement this? Who will be, first of all, which department is going to be given the authorization to issue the passes? Which one is going to be the one to validate the passes? So, in a lot of cases, there's lack of, call it what you want, lack of empathy, lack of foresight, lack of thoughtfulness. It's easy to say, it's very hard to do. How would it work? What would be the mechanical steps involved? Who would take the responsibility? Will there be proper alignment of incentive? Is the person who's supposed to do the job, I just give another example. One day when I was Minister of Finance, I was also Minister for many other portfolios. One of them was personnel administrative reforms, which we call HRM now. We opened the exam after 2 years of COVID. Suddenly I got a file saying that you need to allocate some 50 crores more to run this Group 4 exam. And I said, why suddenly 50 crores more? Then we realized that something like 24 lakh applicants wanted to write the exam. Now think about it. How do you effectively run an exam for 24 lakh applicants, paper and pen based test? The amount of work required to actually generate the question papers, the answer sheets, to maintain confidentiality, to find the evaluators, it's archaic. It's not in the realm of possibility. What's the worst part? The worst part is at that point, the announced number of seats, jobs, was 7,500. Now you tell me, you all run institutions. Is there any way to choose 7,500 people from 24 lakh applicants? If I put a test, at least 1% will hit centum on the test, because the qualification here is not genius. The qualification is 10th class pass. So I can't write a test that's the equivalent of a PhD in physics, right? I can only ask a test that is equivalent to 10th class pass. How will I select 7,500 people out of a 10th class pass standard, 24 lakh applicants? At least 50,000 people will max the test. Then how do I pick 7,500? So, this lack of actual consideration of the nuances of execution, of delivery, of success, I think that somewhere it was drilled into me to think about these things when I was a graduate student, to think about the human element, to think about the alignment of incentives. Also, when I was MBA student, I enjoyed the organizational design and organizational theory class. And actually, one of the best courses I ever took in my life was in MIT. They have this way of numbering courses. The base course will be called O1, the next one will be called O2, the next one, so like corporate finance 501, advanced corporate finance 502, something. So actually one of the most complex problems in finance is not a finance problem at all. It is a psychology and alignment of incentive problem. It says if you have large organizations where the number of shareholders are in the millions or tens of millions, but there's only like 7 guys running the company, right? You have a board for namesake, but there's only 7 like executives running the company. How do you prevent these 7 people from becoming so powerful that they start thinking they are the owners of the company? There's still not a black and white solution to it today. It's called the agency problem. These executives are supposed to be the agents of the shareholders, but the shareholders are so far dispersed, so little personal interest each, and so limited access to information that they become like background noise. And then these 6 or 7 people who happen to be selected because they're like, vice president to senior vice president to MD to CEO, these guys get to run the company as if it's their father's property, right? So then that advanced corporate finance was all about how you set up alignment of incentives, controls, do you allow the chairman CEO to be the same? Should you give stock options or should you give stocks? What is the value of leverage in this? So these are all complex mathematical things, but underlying it is the notion of human psychology. How do human beings behave, and what is it that you can expect reasonably from them? So I think a lot of things, these kinds of issues are core to successful outcomes. And, announcements and like grandiose statements are easy. Delivery is hard, right? So
you have highlighted the importance of prompt engineering and English proficiency in the AI era. So how Tamil Nadu is preparing its students and professionals to meet this challenge?
There are two major changes that we should be preparing for or actually working on right now. And the second is a more complex one, which is, as I say, the world order that we all knew after the Second World War. That world order is changing. We don't know what the new one will be. The old one is dead. There's no more continuing that model. So we all need to adapt somehow to that, but that's a more complex and slightly longer term problem. The shorter term problem is that AI will change everything in stages. It's not going to change today, but again, in like probably the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. Because what do we really mean by AI? It's not like AI was invented yesterday, right? What we mean is we have just crossed that threshold where the incremental cost for creating data, for storing data, and for processing data has dropped to such a low number that is practically infinite. You can generate data how much ever, wherever you want. You can put it into all these data centers, and you can buy the equivalent of a supercomputer's worth of time for some reasonable cost for 2 hours, which otherwise you couldn't do without cloud computing. You needed to buy $200 million worth of computer. You don't have that. Right? So what we have now got is the ability to do almost infinite data generation, storage, analysis, and processing outcomes from. That's what really has transformed AI into being more like value than all the past generation of attempts. So in that era, I think we're going to have to rethink what we teach people and how we teach them. I think that has to start immediately. That has to start not at colleges and PhD programs. It has to start at elementary schools onwards. And that's why I think, sometimes we get caught up in like nonsense debates like should we teach compulsorily 3 languages. There is no history anywhere in the world of anybody compulsorily teaching 3 languages and getting a good outcome. We are struggling to teach 2 languages to get proficiency, right? You get so many students. How many of your students are perfectly proficient in both English and Tamil? Not a lot. So the odds of forcing a 3rd language. So instead we should be thinking, what is it that we should change, right? In fact, yesterday again this question came, and so it's easy for me to recycle the answer. See, at one point, education was, because it was restricted to the elites, because it was restricted, it wasn't universal access as it is now. But the notion of education was that somebody became a cultured person, a humane person, an erudite person. That's what education was supposed to do. It was supposed to make you understand philosophy, understand evolution, understand history, right? So long before there were, you know what the original surgeons were, right? Barbers. Barbers became surgeons because they knew how to cut with a knife, right? So I'm saying, when we transform from that to greater science, universal access, and equitable opportunity for all, we almost shifted completely to the other side, where education only became a means to a job. There was no other component left. Like when I was in school, we used to have to learn civics. We used to learn to have geography. Like it wasn't an option till like very high, like 10th class or something. You had to be taking all these courses, even if tomorrow you were only going to be an engineer. You had to be a well-rounded human being first. Those kinds of things disappeared as we got more and more technical. I think this is going to be a reset, because I think if the machine is capable of doing a lot of things that you would have been trained to do, then you start asking, what is it that makes a human being that cannot be replicated by an algorithm? So I think this is a chance actually, and we are doing something about it. Like we have signed up with both Microsoft and Google, 2 different initiatives, starting in the Department of School Education. My colleague, the Hon'ble Minister, Hon'ble. What should we be doing about changing the curriculum, changing the kind of percentage composition of the content in an age where you don't have to go and learn how to do Python programming anymore. The machine will do the work, right? In fact, somebody sent me a clip, not this year's Davos, but last year's Davos. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, the biggest GPU chip company in the world. he was asked in the audience at Davos, so what should we be teaching our children, like in computer science, in the age of AI? And he basically said the point of the age of AI is that you don't need to do the computer science. The machine does all the work. So you focus on the core things, on reasoning, on logic, on biology, on contemplating cell, like thinking about what happens to cancer cells as opposed to, these are the things the machine is not capable of doing. That's what makes you human. The rest of it, the machine will do by itself. You don't need to teach. If anything, you should reduce the teaching of computer science, right? Because as you say, in fact, my friend Cognizant MD was saying the other day, what is the most common programming language in the world in the age of AI? It's English. It's simply prompt engineering. That's it, right? There's nothing else. You're not writing like Java or some C++. So we have to change the way we teach people. And in my view, we need to change back towards the way we used to think about education, creating thoughtful people who are well grounded in the past and therefore capable to contemplate a different future and look at things like philosophy and history and logic and reasoning and these kinds of things. So anyway, we'll see. We're making some efforts. We'll see.